Hello and welcome to the investment series, The Secrets of the Money Masters. Today, I'm at the family home of Kyah Simon, Australia's Matilda soccer star. I'll be diagnosing what Kyah needs to unlearn about her money before she can really get ahead, pairing her with her own financial planner who'll put her plan down on paper, and getting her access to a masterclass she'll never forget, with a money master from UBS Asset Management who'll share the secrets of money to help her on her way.
I grew up in Western Sydney in Quakers Hill. I've got 3 siblings. Both my dad's parents are Aboriginal. My mum's dad is Australian. My mum's mum is Aboriginal as well. Yeah, I'm very proud of my heritage and my background. I love my sport, basically played every sport that you could name, and I fell into football at the age of 8 and loved it ever since. After watching the 2000 Olympic Games and watching Kyah Simon run and win gold, I said to Mum and Dad I want to play in the Olympics one day, and the opportunity came up to play football, and I was quite good at it as a young age, and my coaches said to my parents, Kyah could probably go somewhere with this, and a lot of things happened around that age, and obviously my passion for it grew, and ever since then I've been professional now for 10 years, and it's what I do for work, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm trying to be as a positive role model for very many young girls out there in Australia, and I know Kyah Simon was that role model for me, and I'm hoping that I can then be that figure for a lot of young Indigenous girls out there. From a young age, in terms of finance, I always had a drive to earn money somehow, and if that was mowing the lawns at home or helping clean up, I always had that passion to do more and hopefully save any penny that I could. I'm now in a position where I'm starting to grow my knowledge in that area, and obviously with the support from my financial coaches around me, from my football coaches, that enables me to be able to be, the best professional athlete that I can be. The more I learn about money and the value of it, it really does give you more of an appreciation for your family or your siblings and where they've had to outlay money for me to be able to, achieve my goals. Like Mum and Dad always said, money doesn't grow on trees, so really you have to hold on to it and appreciate it, and you have to work hard to earn it as well.
I'm here at Kyah's mum's house on the central coast of New South Wales, where we're going to talk about how Kyah grew up and how her views of money have been shaped. Talk to me about your Indigenous background and how important that's been to your sport and your identity.
Obviously, I'm very proud of my Aboriginal background, and having a role model in Kyah Simon when I was a young girl, now being in a position where I can actually, be of similar figure like Kyah was to me, to other young girls, and just being that positive role model that hopefully all young girls can look at, Indigenous or non-Indigenous, gain inspiration.
I'm interested to know what your thoughts were when you got the call, why don't you come on this money show? What did you think?
Yeah, I was quite open to the idea. I think from a young age I've always had an emphasis on my savings and finance, and always looking at ways that I could probably invest my money better.
In my experience, usually people need to unlearn some of their habits around money before they can truly master wealth. Tell me what it was like growing up in your household and what you learned about money growing up.
Growing up with 3 siblings and Mum and Dad at home, obviously they had fairly rough upbringings and didn't have much of a financial support, and made a lot of sacrifices to give us 4 kids the best upbringing that we could have. The older I got, I valued sacrifice and also valued money a lot more, and I still am to this day, and as I guess mature more and more, and I think understanding that more these days, it gives me more of an appreciation for what they did.
Kyah's already got a keen interest in money, and so she's been a good saver since she was young. I'll be very interested to see what she needs to unlearn.
I had a knee reco in 2013-14, and that was an opportunity for me to grow my knowledge in another area outside of football and keep myself busy. And my salary took a hit not being able to play for that year, and I needed to find income elsewhere. And again, I love business. I love being in the corporate world, and an opportunity arose within BT, and I kind of grabbed it with 2 hands.
Kyah's grown up in a family where her parents had to sacrifice to make ends meet, and she's seen the value of money firsthand. We'll be working with her financial advisor to teach her what actions she needs to take to build wealth for the long term. You're very focused. What do you see for yourself out of saving this money and being disciplined? What life do you want? Is it security? Is it choices? Tell me what's motivating you.
Yeah, I think the security of, again, living debt-free and having a house that I can live in that I own,
whether it be here in Sydney or wherever I wish to live. Obviously, I want to be in a position where I can do more and, like I said, help my family out or invest in other areas.
And that takes time.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, at 28, you should be really proud not only of your sport, but what you've done with money, because you've got an investment property, you've got 40 grand in super, which, you know, that's a good effort for 28.
Yeah.
But I can see that you're driven. That's how you've gotten to where you are. So I think you're going to take to this like a duck to water. You know, there's no way to get rich quick, which sucks. And a lot of people don't kind of realise that until they get out of their 20s and into their 30s and then get into debt and then suddenly realise, oh, it's not just going to turn out for me. So the sooner you start, the better it is. And you're in a great position now to do more than most. I've had Kyah do the quiz on my website so I can understand what she really needs to unlearn about money. As I suspected, her big pillar to unlearn is action, taking the right steps to put a long-term strategy in place. Kyah's told me she's bought an investment property and seemed to think that this was the right strategy for her. Next time on the investment series, I'll be introducing Kyah to her new financial advisor, Deb Kent, who'll go through the ins and outs of why an investment property isn't always the best investment and what Kyah needs to action in order to grow her wealth. I'll also be giving Kyah the masterclass of a lifetime with Jeffrey Wong, the head of Global Emerging Markets from UBS Asset Management, who'll teach Kyah the right actions to take to grow wealth for her future.
I think some of the barriers to accumulating wealth, one of the biggest ones is inertia, right? We're all busy, we all have our day jobs, and for most of us, our day jobs are not finance. So you don't think about it, and that's a problem because if you don't think about it, the years go on and you don't make use of that time which you could be using to compound your wealth. So it comes down to drawing a line, going out to plan, sitting down with someone who understands finance and making that plan and then just getting on with it.
Today, we're examining the financial state of affairs of Matilda star Kyah Simon, whose Indigenous heritage forms the basis of how she thinks about money. And joining me is my regular expert Connie McKeege, the CEO of OneView, and Kate Farrer, who's the CEO of LGIA Super. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Now, Kyah is such an interesting and quite an inspirational young woman, really, and she really is proud of her Indigenous heritage. And she wants to share that with her family. She wants to help her parents, help her siblings. Kate, I mean, you have a lot of Indigenous members in the super fund. Tell me, is that a normal thing for Indigenous families?
It absolutely is, and it's really one of the loveliest things I think about Indigenous Australian culture. I guess from a superannuation perspective, it actually also poses some challenges because the structure of Indigenous Australian families are not quite the same as the way that the law is actually written. And from a superannuation perspective, one of the things that we find most challenging, in fact, is how to ensure that the benefits are dispersed to the right people when one of our Indigenous members passes away, because only around 12% of our members, in fact, our Indigenous Australian members have a binding nomination of beneficiary.
Meaning they're saying who they want the money to go to?
Meaning they're saying
12%.
It's a very small number. And when you think about the structures, the family structures in Indigenous Australia, often they're very broad and very dispersed. And so that can add some real complexity. So actually one of the things that I would say to Indigenous Australians that Kyah is, looking to be a role model for, and I certainly agree that she is, she's very inspirational, is to make sure that they have that button down, that they have a binding nomination, and that they really do know where, probably in many cases, what their largest asset, their largest financial asset is going to go once they can no longer use it.
Wow, okay, so go to your super fund and write down the name of who you want if the worst happens.
That's right. Call the call centre, we can certainly help.
Okay, wow, interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Connie, Kate mentioned an interesting word there, role models. And Kyah's role model was Cathy Freeman. Now she's really wanting to be a role model for the next generation of young women. How important do you think financial role models are for young women?
I think role models, full stop, are a very important part of helping us progress with our lives. Whether it's financial or, in this case, a lot of sports stars have role models. For me, I had a role model accidentally that changed my life, which was my mother's best friend. My whole family, Mum, if you're watching, are very, very structured. And I'm more a go with the flow kind of girl. And my mother's best friend, who was an interpreter, came into our house one day and emptied her handbag upside down on the table, a complete mess, with keys and everything everywhere. And I thought, that's my handbag, and she's a career woman, so I can be a career woman with a messy handbag. So I do think role models in financial services is important because it can help you know that you can get there as well.
I got to have a look in your handbag. Is it messy still?
Absolutely. And it's never going to change.
Good to know. Kate, Kyah's 28, and I think getting Deborah Kent in to get financial advice was quite transformational for her, and she learnt a lot about things that she wanted to do but just didn't know how to go about doing it. What's the best age for people to seek out financial advice? When do you do it?
It's a great question. Look, like everything, the earlier that you start, the better that you get. Frankly, it's like the 10,000 hours to get to mastery. And there's certainly no age that is too young, really, to seek financial advice, nor too old, which is very comforting to me, I have to say.
Yeah, and me.
But one thing that's really quite interesting, actually, when I have a look at our member base, again from an Indigenous perspective, what we've found is that our Indigenous members are like 1 in 6 times as likely to take financial advice. So from Kyah's perspective, if she can teach, young Indigenous women about the value of seeking out expert advice, then that's a fantastic thing for her to be able to do.
Wow.
Can I ask, Kate, you have a mixed membership base. Is there much difference between the member outcomes between the Indigenous and your non-Indigenous members?
Look, as with many other aspects of society, I have to say that those differences are stark, and actually they're quite shocking. I guess when we look into our member base, and obviously we have 17 of our 77 councils that LGIA super serves across Queensland are Indigenous councils, Indigenous Australian councils, so we're very committed to those communities. The average super balances are something like a quarter or a bit over a quarter for Indigenous members of what they are for non-Indigenous members, which is just a terrible statistic. And
wow.
Part of it is because of the more casual work, part of it is because they have more accounts, sometimes they're a bit more dispersed, but it really shows the value of focusing on what you do have and collecting it all together and making sure that it works as hard as possible for you in those cases.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. And look, Kyah's a very focused young woman. I mean, she bought the investment property straight up without being told. She went and did it because she's focused, and she's competitive too. So she's like, how can I beat my own score here on financials? But I think other people need to learn those lessons. Connie, what do you think we can learn from Kyah as far as her discipline? What can people out there who are watching, who may not be good at soccer or in any way athletic like myself, learn from Kyah and what she's going through?
Look, no matter what you're doing, you need some discipline and regularity around your outcomes. And you can start now, you can start with small amounts, just do it frequently. So it doesn't matter how much it is. The earlier you start, the better it is, and the longer you have. And you'll wake up one day, if you do it regularly, like $25 a week or $200 a month, small amounts every single month over a period of time. And guess what? You'll wake up when you're a lot older and you will be independently wealthy. That is the way that it works.
Kate, and how do you as a super fund go about spreading this message? Because storytelling is incredibly important, right, to Indigenous and non-Indigenous people.
Yeah, well, obviously Queensland's a very large place, and we cover all of it, I have to say. I think last year our education team, who go out and they talk with members, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, all around the state, I think they covered 344 workplaces, and some of those they had to take a charter flight to go and visit. So I think what's really important is, we make available the messages, the education, the support, the health checks, the advice. It's important that people actually take them up. So I guess my advice, again for Kyah, because I think she is a role model, for, if she wants to make positive change in her communities, is to talk about the value of taking up what's on offer and taking up that advice.
Well, Kate and Connie, thank you very much for joining me on this panel. We all agree that, Kyah is someone who definitely deserves to succeed.
She's amazing.
She is.